Well, as we now know, that resignation is expected in just over 90 minutes. Hassan Diab is going to speak to the nation, and it is expected that that's what he'll say, that the entire government is going to resign. They went into this meeting a few hours ago, and we've already seen the resignation of 5 ministers altogether, but 4 since the explosion. One went the day before the explosion, already citing government incompetence, their lack of ability to achieve anything. And since the explosion now, we've had 4 ministers resigning, saying that they're doing so out of respect for the many people who lost their lives, the thousands of people injured, and all those left homeless by this tragedy. Now, if the government does indeed go this evening, as seems to be the case, what then remains to be seen is whether that will sate protests enough. The suspicion is it will not, because the case is it's not simply this government that's responsible for this, but successive governments who we now know ignored numerous warnings about that 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate down at the port that was highly explosive and left out in deteriorating conditions.
So what happens next if the government does resign as is expected?
What happens next is exactly what happened last year when Prime Minister Saad Hariri resigned. The parliament then has to come together and elect a new prime minister, which takes a lot of time. There is a name floating around now of Salam, who was very popular the last round and ended up not being the person who was nominated. But the question is whether he would be willing to take over in these conditions. With such an enormous mountain to climb. He's a popular character who has not been in government but was a previous ambassador for Lebanon to the UN, so he has very good international relations at a time. Lebanon always needs international partners, but particularly at the moment with so many international actors trying to come to Lebanon's aid and several having had difficulties over the last few days with this current government. So that's what needs to happen next, and if they are able to find a prime ministerial candidate, that prime ministerial candidate then needs to put together a cabinet, which again takes quite a lot of time. Now, the issue is that is unlikely, as I say, to sate people who are furious, who've been campaigning, these protesters, for 10 months to try and get rid of the current governmental system, and simply firstly, this parliament, this current parliament, agreeing to a new prime minister and a new cabinet with the same parliamentarians is unlikely to please them because it's still the same people in power, and even a new election under the same system, which is what Hassan Diab had suggested on Saturday might happen, still is unlikely to please anybody because it still is carried out within the same parameters, within the same sectarian divisions in the way that this parliament set up, and that's not what the people, thousands of people taking to the street, are saying that they want. They want a complete change in a government who they say will actually act for the people and take responsibility.
Okay, Leila Milana Allen in Beirut.